I'm Carrie Adams, and you're listening to Carrie's Connoisseurs, coming to you from Solid Gold Podcasts. Here we talk to the movers and shakers, the drinkers, the dreamers, and all the people who make it happen in the liquor and luxury industries from around the world. Good morning, everybody. Today we are in my studio with a really darling friend of mine and work colleague for many, many years, Mutle Mogase. He doesn't really require introduction, but for those of you who might not know who he is one of the owners of Epicurean. And earlier on this week, I interviewed Sam Shaloa, and I promised you that there was going to be a two-part interview, and this is two-part. Mutle, welcome to Carrie's Connoisseurs.
Thank you, Carrie.
And he's been dragged into the studio. I normally do, as you know, I do these things via Riverside, but today we've got my Muts live, so we can touch and feel and talk and smell, and we should have been drinking. It's a bit early in the morning though, hey?
I know, and I've got golf right after this.
Have you? Okay, what time have you got golf?
No,
do we need to be mindful?
No,
okay.
Yeah.
Mutle Mogase, like I said to you during the Sam Shaloa interview, Sam is larger than life. You know, there were the four of you that started Epicurean Wine, which, as you know, I'll just remind you, we celebrated Epicurean's 20th birthday party last week. And it's just showing beautifully. And I thought it just deserved to be shown to more people around the world because it's drinking beautifully. But the thing I really wanted to encapsulate was the personalities of the owners of this wine that shine through both the Chardonnay and the red blend that you've made. Mutle's quiet, he's retiring, he's smart. Not that Sam isn't, but he's a very, very different. And that part of your personality comes through in the wine. That serious quality that comes through in that wine is very much Mogase. Let's tell them about Mutle Mogase, because you know ordinary Mutle Mogase. Mutle Mogase was brought up in an apartheid era South Africa and shot to fame in spite of apartheid. Tell us a bit about your early life.
Yeah, really interesting growing up during that time, with my father involved in politics and subsequent detention. So I kind of grew up in that environment.
Where were you born? In Soweto?
Actually, I was born at Mill Park. It was called Bridgman
You
Memorial.
see, and you went to bloody St. John's or something. You're fancy schmancy. You're not... Yeah, just tell us the truth. Come on.
Yeah, no, I grew up in Soweto. That was the only place you could grow up during that time as well. So my parents lived mostly in Alex and moved to Soweto, I think, in the early 60s. Yeah, so kind of grew up in Soweto, ended up at UCT, and which is where I started with my wine life.
Yes.
Joined the UCT Wines Society, but I trained in accounting and tax, and most of my life has been in banking and finance.
Yes.
So that's kind of pretty much in short.
He's one of those sort of clever hedge fund or venture capitalists or something like that I don't understand.
No, so I started off as a financial manager and then ended up in banking, and I got an opportunity to train at Chase Manhattan Bank, which introduced me to private equity.
Studied further in New York.
Yes, yeah. City University of New York, but really got interested in private equity. So when I got back to South Africa, waited for an opportunity, and we started our own business in 1998. I was one of the founders of Real Africa Investments, which was probably the first BE company, which we listed in 93, 94. And then I got out of that in 98, and then we set up our own private equity business, which then morphed into, became Vantage Capital, into mezzanine finance. Yeah. So it's been an exciting journey.
And a hugely successful one as well. I mean, ever since I've known you, I've never known you to be anything other than successful, really. I was trying to think last night when I got into bed and I knew that I was going to be interviewing you today. And I thought, when was the first time I ever saw Mutle? And do you know where it was?
No.
It was a long time ago, Muts. And it was at a Boschendal tasting.
Jeez.
that I was hosting to Helen gone out near in Honeydew somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you remember that place? It was like a verstunkende venue somewhere. We got roped into this thing somehow. And I think, I don't know, anyway, we got in our cars, it was cold, it was dark, it was dirt roads, it was really shitty, it was Shitsville. So off we go to this thing, and I think that you and Baba were the only people at that tasting that I could honestly relate to. The rest of them had sort of hands growing out the middle of their back, and there was obviously a lot of interbreeding going on and bad, ill-fitting tracksuits, and it was really horrible. It was not a goodie. And there was Mutle and his gorgeous wife, Baba, and I thought, thank God, there's somebody I can talk to. And that is the first time I ever met you and Baba. And I think that was in 1994. Somewhere around there.
Probably around that
It was
time.
that long ago.
Yeah, wow.
We just sort of had some elections and things here, and it was quite unusual to see a black man and his wife at a wine tasting, and I thought, oh God, now what? And then to my utter delight, just the best.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I met you.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't even remember that that long ago. Yeah.
So you went to UCT, and you obviously got swept up with, you fell in love, like we all do. Cape Town's beautiful.
Yep.
On a beautiful day, Cape Town's beautiful. There are not many beautiful days in Cape Town.
There's plenty. There's
A
enough.
few more than England, but not many. The wind blows all the time. I had the most magnificent veranda sort of thing on my place in Cape Town. And I had to chain the chairs to the deck. I mean, it's just daft. That's what the wind's like in Cape Town.
I'll take Cape Town.
Would you?
Anytime. Yeah,
Would you?
Absolutely.
Do you prefer it to Johannesburg?
I think I like the restaurant scene there. I think it's a little bit more sophisticated than Johannesburg when it comes to.
You don't think it's a little bit up its own, you know what? Huh?
I think people have that view, but
we want real
really
people.
comfortable in Cape Town. Yeah.
It's very pretty.
Yeah, the Western Cape is really pretty. Yeah.
I think I always say, of all the winelands that I've had the privilege of seeing in my life, the Western Cape honestly does have some of the most beautiful winelands of all.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, it's just the mountains, just the setting is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's not much in Napa. I mean, lots of flat land in Napa. It's not.
I know, except that, you know what I think? I love the wine that's coming out of Napa. So what do you have? The pretty wine farm or the absolutely mind-blowing wine?
Yeah, Napa.
Hard choice, eh?
I find them interesting. I mean, the history of Napa is also very fascinating about trying to find out how they built those things, because it's a lot of tech money. So everything is pretty much over-engineered, but it's a really fascinating.
And I can remember when I was studying in England, talking about Napa, we will actually get on to Mutle's wine in 2 seconds flat, but I'm trying to give you a nice feeling of the man. And my phone is doing this, and it's somebody from New York. As we're talking, I better just switch it off. Sorry, Cal. When I was studying my wine stuff, we obviously had to taste quite a lot of stuff from Napa, and I was terribly rude about it, because that was like in the turn of the 17th century, that's how old I am. And I was very rude about Napa. It was very big and buxom and Dolly Parton-ish,
Yep.
It was pretty,
Yep.
and it could sing, but it was a bit hot to handle.
Yep.
Especially when you were tasting it next to some of those very refined, very sort of shy, withdrawn Bordeaux's that you have to wait for so long to love.
Sure.
And I was very rude about Napa. But like you say, the tech money that's gone into that American wine industry, I've had to apologize hugely and withdraw a lot of my terribly politically incorrect, me, comments about Napa. They're making fabulous wine.
Yeah, I think there's been a big movement both sides. I mean, if you look at what happened in Bordeaux with what's his Robert
Michel
Parker?
Oh, yes.
Robert Parker influencing the style of wine, I guess, coming out of the Judgment of Paris. And the wines became, I think you'll remember, in the early 2000s.
Thank God they've gone back to being what they used to be.
So
Robert Parker should never have been allowed to influence. Who cares what Robert Parker gives in points?
Well, it's about the money at the end of the day. So that's, if you can double your price and sell lots.
And if Robert Parker gives it 96, you can't double your price.
Absolutely.
I get you. Yeah.
So that's kind of my, I mean, the Bordeaux style. Bordeaux is also, it's not as pretty as the Western Cape. Just going back.
Bordeaux.
Yeah.
The terrain is not as pretty because it's actually a reclaimed marsh. If everybody's sort of true to their word and we're quite honest about our pedigree, it was a marsh, it was a bog, and it was reclaimed. But what is beautiful about Bordeaux is what the French have done to it, because they've just got this most unbelievable sense of style and class, and those chateaux are so exquisite. They just, you can't replace those Bordeaux chateaux.
But it's also another controversy, right? About, because a lot of those names are actually Irish and English.
Well, I'm Irish. I'm half Irish, so you mustn't ever be rude about them.
And the money came from those merchants in those early days. So a lot of English influence in the French wine industry, including champagne, because the champagne bottles were originated.
England, you know me. England is the seat of civilization. And it'll be shut down in flames by everybody here.
I'm not going there.
And all gorgeous things come out of England, and the champagne industry is about to get the biggest surprise of their life.
With the plantings in England. They're making some stunning sparkling wines. Yeah.
They are. That funny little island that's as big as the Kruger National Park.
But champagne will always be champagne.
What? So, you fell in love with wine at UCT.
Yes.
Did you drink a lot? Did you go into the winelands and drink a lot and be drunk and disorderly like most students?
Well, the access was not as it was now, but we had access because of the Wine Society.
Yeah.
We had.
What years were you at varsity?
Intervarsity with Stellies in the mid-late 80s.
Yeah. Me too.
Yes.
But I was at Wits, I wasn't at UCT.
So I got to UCT, I think, 83 or 84.
It's so long ago now, I can't remember even when I matriculated, but it was sort of around about then. Yeah.
Mid-late 80s, so... we just used it was really formal. It wasn't a piss-up club. It was, everyone took it quite seriously. It was a very different experience. And I think that's led. And I happened to work for a boss because during my varsity breaks, I worked for two guys who really loved wine, and so that gave me access to some quality wines at that stage. But it was always the standard wines, Kerry. Remember you had Alto Rouge, Tennis Car Riesling.
Hempies. Hempies de Toy used to wander around barefoot all the time, and Jan Boerland. They were all ex-rugby players, Springbok rugby players, and they had the delicacy and finesse of a rugby player. So this wine tasted like a rugby, it tasted like a prop. Hey? There were very few sort of scrum halves in that lot.
No, but it was the style in South Africa as well.
It was. Yeah.
Because remember, we used to pick based on sugars rather than on phenolic ripeness. So you wanted it to get to 24, 26, and that's where you picked. Which resulted in overly extracted wines as well.
But remarkably, with that very high barreling, the alcohols were quite low on those old red wines. I don't know how they did it, because I still look in cellars now, and some of those
all
12.5%. And then we started worrying about phenolic ripeness. Yeah. And all of a sudden the alcohols went up to 14.5% and 15%. It was crazy. Yeah. So I don't know how they managed to do it.
But some of them were a little bit green.
Do you know what I think they used to do? I think they used to do, it's a practice that I cannot applaud, and a lot of people do it, where they pick some of their grapes much greener and underripe are sort of lower ballings.
So they blend.
And then blend to try and get,
later,
and it just makes the wine come out like two puppies in a pillowcase, fighting to get out.
Yeah.
There's a green, horrible, caustic, tight, bad-tempered one, and then there's this big, voluptuous, seductive, sweet, sort of soft Rubenesque thing that's also lying in the bottom of the pillow slip. And they're just never going to meet.
Yeah. But I think we've come a long way. South African wines are just beautiful.
Some of them are gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think for us, when we started, that was the background, because our first vintage was in 2003. And I think with the sanctions, you remember as well, South Africa never really exported. So the exposure or the view by critics wasn't there. So
we exported a load, but it all came from the KWV.
Yeah.
And it was all dreadful.
Very controlled, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we started, we wanted to get away from that because of our experience of the French wines.
Yes.
Which were elegant, subtle, especially
pretty.
The left bank wines. Yeah. Just really, really pretty.
Yeah. And they age so beautifully. The French wines age so.
Yeah.
I want to age like a French wine. It's not happening, but I did ask for that.
You're doing well.
It's one of those things I'm going to have to speak to God about when I get to heaven.
You're doing well.
It's a bad design that wine doesn't need Botox and people do, It's one of the things. So you finished at university and did what? Where did you meet Baba? Let's tell everybody about how gorgeous Baba is. Mutle's got the most gorgeous wife. She's a very dear friend of mine. She's just a sassy, classy, sexy little lady who's been an amazing mother. She's supported you through some tough times because it hasn't been easy being you in a post-apartheid South Africa. And we don't have to talk about that because it's political shit and we don't want to go there. Suffice to say that the family is extremely successful and they've just done well and they are a big beacon of hope on what was a very dim horizon. So that's who the Mogases are. You met Baba where?
In Pretoria at some party.
Some Afrikaners party?
No. She grew up in Pretoria in which is Mabopane.
Yes.
So we used to like going there to party. Unfortunately, she joined me at UCT.
Yeah.
So we've been together a little while.
I know, a long time. Yeah. It's been a great success story. And two girls.
Bonso working with me in the business, and Lerato is trained as a pastry chef and chocolatier.
Where is she now?
She's branching out into something different and looking at digital marketing. So that's what
they all do.
Yeah.
That's what they all do now. Hey?
Yeah.
So you left university. You've always lived in Johannesburg.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I've just lived in Johannesburg.
Started your businesses, all successful. Let's move away from all of that because I think you can see the kind of man we're dealing with. And you decided that it was time to maybe dip your own toes into the wine world.
Yes. Well, I actually like to say it started off as a bit of a dare. You'll remember we had that single bottle club. I used to get some wines from you. My cellar wasn't that deep at
no, and we
stage.
were competing with the likes of Dave King and what have you, who had a cellar of very dubious beginnings, which I sold him.
Yeah. So yeah. Most of the guys said, really deep cellars. And I think the story has been told a few times before, where I kind of said to Johan Rupert, I want to be your BE partner.
To Johan?
To Johan.
I know, that was such a, I love the Ruperts. Yeah. Everybody's always so rude about, that's a bit better. Everybody's always so rude about everything in this country. Instead of just giving everything the benefit of the doubt and going with the flow, Yeah. Now I've made the chair go down too low. But the Ruperts, like the Oppenheimers, like many of those big, powerful families, have been so unbelievably additive in this country.
Yeah.
You can't take it away from there. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how deeply, desperately unfair and unjust and everything it seemed to be. What's been put back has never been counted.
No, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to see old Dr. Rupert or Johan?
No, this was Johan. So he basically came back and said, listen, guys, I'd love to have you as my partners, but my structures are complicated. But you guys got such big mouths, and you think you know wine. Why don't I'll give access to my facilities.
Sounds like Johan.
You do it, yeah. So that's how it started, and put us in touch with Hein Kuchlenberg, who then put us in touch with Skalky, Skalk Willem Joubert. Yeah.
I still see Skalky, and I spend a lot of time with Skalky with his new venture. He's still, for me, one of the best winemakers in the business.
Yeah, just an amazing,
gorgeous man.
An amazing human being.
Gorgeous man. We love him. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we started with that 2003 vintage, trying to explain what we wanted to do. And I think to get the message across in terms of what we're trying to achieve, we did a lot of benchmark tastings to demonstrate the styles that we.
And I think I'm correct in saying that you were one of the first. I know Neil Ellis was the first ever, what I call cuckoo winemaker, where, you lay your eggs in somebody else's nest.
Yep.
And I think Neil Ellis was the first one in South Africa. And I think that you guys were the next to do it, where you didn't own your cellar, you didn't own your vineyards, you actually were a bit more like a negotiant, really. You went around and you found the best of everything that you wanted. And I mean, you can't really go wrong with a Rupert and Rothschild cellar. It's sort of premium stuff, whichever way you shake it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about who else was in there.
Yeah, I think you were the next serious winemakers to do that.
Because a lot of people do white labelings. They buy the wine. We get involved in the process.
Yes,
So we're really quite involved.
I think you were the second guys to do it.
Yeah, with the blending, So
2003, you sign up a deal with the Rupert family.
Yep.
Which comes together with one of the best winemakers in the country.
Yep.
And access to some of the best vineyards in the country.
Yeah.
Were you restricted to buying Rupert grapes?
No, so the way our process works, basically, they've got contracts with all of these winemakers, and essentially make the wine, and then we get to select specific barrels.
So you're actually buying the juice?
Yes.
You don't have anything to do with the vineyard?
No, it's not technically, So, because they've got contracts, so in terms of production, our production is quite small. I think it would be a bit of a mess to try and do that.
Yes,
but what it does is that it gives us access to a lot of the best vineyards and the best barrels, because we go through barrel selection.
And you can also say to the winemaker, I'm sure, that you want continuity, because it's something I was speaking to Sam about. The gubbins and the rudiments of any successful brand, for me, is consistency.
Yep.
So you're in a position to dictate what vineyards you want your juices to come from.
No, not quite dictate. Okay, I think the team has been really interested in what we're doing. So they've given us access to really beautiful vineyards. So what would typically happen sometimes is that particular vintage, they'd find a beautiful block, which they feel it's so beautiful, it almost needs to stand on its own, or blended with very specific other vineyards. So obviously, because of the volumes that they produce, that would be kind of lost in that volume.
Yeah.
And they want to express that, so they make those available to us. So it's been a really, really great journey with them and their interest in what we are trying to achieve. So we then go through that process. They bring all the tasting samples from the barrels, and we'd go through, and they typically say, we think this is a good base, and we taste and then make the call on that particular wine as a base, and then start playing around with the blend.
Tell me, your Chardonnay. I fell so in love with that Chardonnay last week. That 2018 in Magnum. I put it on Facebook. I said, it's my new death row drink. It definitely is a death row drink. If you've got one shot at putting something in your mouth before they have that, it's gorgeous. Is it from the Kaimansgat vineyards?
No, that is from, the grapes come from Casey's Ridge.
Just so nice.
Yeah, so in Elgin, yeah.
Yeah.
There's always
Elgin?
a controversy about it's Elgin or Elgin.
It's Elgin. Elgin, if you're proper Scottish, you say Elgin. Muts, Elgin is producing some absolutely extraordinary Chardonnay fruit.
Yeah.
In fact, as we sit here and speak, I told you I've got Paul Kluwer the 17th upstairs waiting for an interview. We're going to talk about Elgin Chardonnay. But Casey's Ridge is lovely, so no wonder it's gorgeous. Yeah. That Chardonnay is extraordinary.
You must tell Paul, I'm Mutle Mogase the third. So.
I'm Carrie Adams the first. I said to him, he stayed at my house last night, and I said to him, are you Paul Kluwer the third or the fourth or the fifth, or what are you? He said, I'm the 17th. Sounds terribly posh and grand, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I'm the third.
So the first one, who was the first Mutle Mogase?
It was
Grandpa?
Great uncle. In fact, there's one before him, so he was the second.
Okay.
My great uncle, yeah. So.
And your father wasn't a Mutle?
No. He had. He was Isaac Mogase.
Yeah, it's
it's
so interesting. So, what is your home language? It's English, I know, but if it wasn't English, what's the other one?
Tswana.
Tswana.
Yeah.
Do you know that I have to admit, most ashamedly so, that I was born in South Africa. I was raised by a black lady called Lizzie, whose surname I never knew. I knew she lived in a place called Everton. I loved her more than I loved my mother. She was the most alarming woman. I loved her. She tried with all her heart and might to teach me to speak another language. Do you know that I don't even know how to say, hello Mutle, how are you? My name's Carrie, today's Thursday. I don't even know how to say that in your language. It's shameful.
I think that's the problem with South Africa. I mean, if you go to Lesotho...
but why did you make it so difficult? Why 11 languages, for goodness sake? Just one would have been good.
Well, it's the scramble for Africa. That's how they cut up the countries. Yeah?
God's sakes, 11 of them. Yeah. No country on planet Earth has got 11 official languages.
I think there might be one or two others.
Oh, my God. Where? And I bet you nobody can speak all 11. Hey?
No.
Muts? Where to next with Epicurean?
Shinoa can speak all 11, by the way.
Can he?
Yeah. And the president.
I don't even speak to me about the president. We're
Okay,
not talking about that. Let's go somewhere else. We're not speaking about this president. Muts, Epicurean, the name. Epicurean. To be an Epicurean, you have to be a hedonist. Hedonism is something that I personally think is a wonderful doctrine by which to live. Why did you call your wine Epicurean?
Yeah. The Epicurean philosophy is actually the opposite of hedonism.
Stop trying to cover your you-know-what.
No. Epicurus...
it's all about sensual pleasures. Now you don't know what to say.
But
he doesn't tell.
Epicurus' philosophy was about keeping things simple. And that you derive a lot of your pleasure should really come from intellectual pursuits and friendships and relationships
within,
rather than indulgence. So
none of this
he talks about absence of bodily pain as one of the.
I'm with that.
As one of the things, and just simple tastes.
There's nothing simple about a Greek. I'll believe you, but thousands wouldn't.
So but then it's evolved into people understanding and appreciating the fine things in life. So it's not, so hedonism is,
Go back and do your homework, you'll see it's hedonism. In the extreme, which is absolutely wonderful. I think that this new world that we live in, where nobody's allowed to enjoy themselves, nobody's allowed to be better than anybody else, lest you offend someone. Nobody's allowed to have ambition. Nobody's allowed to offend anybody else. It's just an impossibility. I think that to have something to look up to, some ambition, somebody to look at Mutle and say, God, he was my head boy at school. Now, I don't think you're allowed to have head boys anymore in case you offend the stupid boy. When we were at school, the clever kid sat by the window because you finished first so you could look out the window and, you know, sing a song, do whatever. And you got more stupid as you got towards the door because it was easier for the teacher to say to the really daft one, get the hell out of my classroom, you're causing trouble. And there was no offense taken. It was your choice as to whether you wanted to be clever or stupid or diligent or otherwise. Do you know what I mean? So there has to be all of this stuff in order to create excellence. And Epicurean is excellent. You've created excellence in your brand.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I think the issue of standards needs to be there. You can't moderate everyone.
You can't take the clever away to appease the stupid.
So, yeah. But we're really happy with the way Epicurean is.
Okay, so tell us the blend. The makeup of the blend changes.
Yes.
Vintage to vintage. What do you tend to sort of lean towards?
So the first vintage was 55% Merlot, about 45% Cab. So
was it 55% Merlot?
Yeah.
And when we tasted it, you know, I'm a bit rude about Merlot.
Yeah.
I always say Merlot is a... Now, I'll probably get shot down in flames if I tell you what I think Merlot, but my grapes have got genders. I'm not going to tell you what Merlot is. And it doesn't normally do... The only Merlot that we really drink is Chateau Petrus.
Yeah.
If we think of it.
Yeah, obviously most of the right bank wines.
Yes.
Yeah. But the percentage of
But that 2003 was just tasting gorgeous.
But it's again finding those special vineyards. So it's kind of evolved. So 2003, 2004. The blends have been fairly kind of playing. 2004 was the opposite, 55% Cab, I think 45% Merlot. 2005 she started to introduce the Cab Franc. So the blend has pretty much since then had Cab Franc, Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon. And then we introduced in 2006 Petit Verdot. I don't know if you tasted the 2006. Drinking absolutely beautiful.
I don't think I tasted the 2006. Yeah. I got stuck on the 2014, which is just sublime. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. And then 2006, yes, we got a big dollop of PV of 20%.
Now, Petit Verdot is an interesting grape, hey?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting grape. Sometimes you can just put a little bit too much in and it just buggers up the whole thing.
Yeah, typically should be about 5 to 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes when you start using 20%, it means you're in trouble, right?
You need a big splash of colour. I love the colour of it. I want a velvet dress the colour of Petit Verdot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you imagine? Oh. So gorgeous.
So that's 2007. Pretty much almost equal portions. 2008, it's probably the outlier in our vintages. Had 77% Cab. 2008.
And your Cab coming from Stellenbosch?
All Stellenbosch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did have in the early years we had fruit from Darling.
There's some nice fruit in Darling.
Yeah. I think the early Merlots came from Darling. And then we just kind of mostly now pretty much Stellenbosch fruit now. That 2016, 2017, 18, it's pretty much straight Stellenbosch now. So you'll see we're going to change the label instead of coastal to become Stellenbosch going forward.
And the soldiers who own the brand, is Ronald Galt still involved? No,
Ron retired and left for the US.
He lives in Martha's Vineyard or something. I mean, who wouldn't want to be there? I want to be there.
Yeah, it's Martha's Vineyard in Sarasota. So Ron started his own brand as well called Passages at some stage.
Yes, I remember he started Passages in Elgin.
I don't know where.
I think it was in Elgin.
He spoke to me about it. I think he had a deal with Brevet Rats as well. I think he was doing some stuff with Brevet Rats.
Yeah. But is he still doing Passages?
I don't know. So I don't think so, because the travel in and out is
Okay. I must actually catch up
Ron
with
is
him.
in his 80s now.
He must be. He was a gorgeous man. And his wife, Shalana, she was a very...
Charlene, yeah.
Or Charlene.
Charlene.
She was a fabulous journalist from memory.
Yeah, very, very significant journalist.
So there was Ron. And then, of course, as I said to Sammy Sixpence, there was my darling Moss.
Yep.
It was so nice to see Diane the other night. Martin Gosheng, one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
And he's also pushed off to America. I mean, he's pretty much in America all the time.
He lives here.
Rubbish. You're all keeping quiet because you want the tax man to think, I know what's going on.
I'm not really quite.
I know, you do
as far as I know, Moss is in South
Moss is
Africa.
never here. But going forward, plans for Epicurean, what do we need to know?
I think the push into other markets. I think, Kerry, one of the interesting things about wine, especially Epicurean, we started off almost on this like a geeky one because we wanted to make this particular wine. We never had a target market in mind. We really wanted to create this wine as Basma would say. If no one buys it, we'll drink all of it.
We'll drink it. I remember all of us saying that.
And that's kind of been the ethos. Now the world has changed into brands. And the idea of a brand for us was anathema at some stage, because you're now starting to deal with influencers and a whole lot of people that are interested in the brand, not so much in the wine itself.
You mustn't let an influencer get hold of Epicurean. All there'll be is pictures of cleavages, drinking, eyelashes, and you say to them, what are you drinking, darling? And they don't know if it's Nesquik or fucking Momelo or whatever.
Down that route,
so we don't want influencers.
But it's a different way that people look at wine now. I mean, the early days of our launches, if you recall, it was always trade. And
doesn't have to be trade anymore.
On-con, off-con, and journalists. But now we orientated more towards the client. So we run a private client, sponsor runs a private client.
If you have a look at all the very successful brands on planet Earth, there's a couple of common denominators. One, as I say, is the consistency.
Yep.
Don't go and keep on changing your label. I mean, how often have you seen Chateau Lafite or anybody changing their label?
Yep.
Stick to your knitting. So keep your consistency good on how it looks, where it's placed. And you know, I remember having said to a lot of wine farmers for many, many years, stop bothering about getting bullied by the trade.
Yep.
Rich, coming from me, I worked in the trade for many years.
Sure.
But for my money, trade should be a space where it's my prerogative as to what product I put on my shelf.
Yep.
I seek out the product that I want, I purchase it, and then it's my business to sell it. I don't need to get you to do tastings for me. I'm perfectly capable of selling that product myself. Now, you try and get into an off-trade space, and you're screwed for discounts and shelf space and catalogue prices fees. And listing fees, and then you've got to send somebody to go and stand there tasting every Saturday. Whatever happened to proper retail? I'm an old-fashioned retailer. What happened? And I'm going to be shot down in flames by a lot of people, but sometimes you just have to say it like it is. If I think Epicurean is good enough to go on my shelf, I must have the courage of put your money where your mouth is. I'll sell it for you.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the farms need to realize that their biggest route to market is their cellar door.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's, I always say to people, if you look at the platter guide, it's this thick. And we're all trying to get shelf space and space on a wine list. So I think this probably leads to that as well, where the power shifts to the retailer or to the restaurateur.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, that's what's happened. But we've refused to pay listing fees and stuff.
Just refuse to pay those listing fees. So. I don't think Lafite pays listing fees.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. I haven't watched them.
They beg them to get the wine.
And they make quite a lot of wine as well.
And I think it's been that for us as well. We've had to obviously do the tasting with the trade. And the wine has been successful like that. It's been hand sales, one shop at a time.
Yeah.
And it's worked for us. And I think when you talk about consistency, we say, I mean, the blend might change a little bit from year to year, but there are things that are always there. It's aromatic harmony, there's complexity, there's longevity.
There's that polish. It's glossy wine.
Yeah, all of those things. That will always be, irrespective of the blend, that will always be the trademark of
I could just drink a glass right now. We should have had some this morning.
We should have.
What, in your opinion, is your most coveted bottle in your own private cellar? What bottle of wine, if I said to you, only allowed to choose one from your own cellar that's in there now, and I know pretty much what's in your cellar.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing?
Curiously, I mean, it's a wine that I'm hoping to drink soon, which I'm really curious about. I've got a 1906 Mutle Mogase Shield, and that's my. I mean, is
that what you want?
Yeah, I'm really curious about that wine. I've got. I mean, the other one is the Mogase, Romani Conti Mogase. So, yeah, I just loved Burgundy.
Well, I love Burgundy as well. I'm a big Burgundian. I drank one of the beautiful white Burgundies out of my cellar on the weekend with a special friend. It was a 1999 vintage. It was white. And it was just
sublime.
So gorgeous. So gorgeous. You have no idea.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Yeah, so
you can take over the world when you drink wine like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the white Burgundies, I mean, obviously the reds are
it was as fresh as the day was long.
Yeah.
Fresh as the day was long. It's lovely.
Yeah. So that's
and if I were to say to you, so we're going to drink 1906 Chateau Mouton Rothschild, and what are we going to eat? What would you eat? You're going to the gallows in 3 hours.
Because at that stage, the wine is quite subtle, the 1906, so you can pair it pretty much with anything because it's gorgeous.
Should we go the whole hedonistic way and have some foie gras?
Absolutely.
You and I are going to be shot at dawn. That really is going to be our death row meal.
Yeah.
Hey?
Do the foie gras, do the riz de veau, all rich stuff, all bad stuff.
It's what I unashamedly do. I do stuff on Carrie's Connoisseurs that is, well, it's princes and paupers. I mean, it's not only princes. I'm a pauper. So I sort of host it as a pauper, but as an aspirant.
You've got a decent collection.
As an aspirant princess.
Yes, you've got.
That's how.
The queen.
Aspirant. Mutle, you are a jewel in one of our crowns. You definitely are. You know what you did? You built a bridge in South Africa, and going a little bit deeper than just the wine. It was a time when everybody looked at this, myself included. You know me, I say it like it is, and I really don't care what color anybody is. It's all about whether we get each other inside our hearts. And you guys managed to build a bridge between the biggest, richest white capitalist in the country and yourselves, who are not white. And everybody was saying, oh, it's just another one of those beaver. It's been such a wonderful success story, and me, more than anybody, so proud and so pleased at the success of Epicurean. You just pulled it off.
Carrie, thank you so much. Yeah, and it was important for us as well. Yeah. And there were a lot of people, lots of skeptics.
Lots of naysayers,
including our own friends.
Lots of naysayers,
yeah.
And you just quietly pulled it off, and it just shows everyone that we can actually just do it. Yeah. Just do it. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for the opportunity to chat about
Epicurean. Happy 20th birthday.
Yes. Yeah,
everybody needs a few cases of Epicurean in their cellar. I'm just saying, especially the 2018 Magnum of Chardonnay.
That is gorgeous. Yeah. So we'll be making a few of the back vintages available throughout the year. So
I'm going to put them in this shop.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll speak to you about it, and we'll put them in the shop, guys, so just watch the space. In fact, Callum, how do I tell everybody to subscribe to whatever so they can see what's happening? on whatever you're listening to, guys, there's a subscribe button, I'm told. I'm told.
YouTube as well.
On YouTube. Okay. There's a subscribe button, and we'll find Epicurean Wines on there. Thank you, my darling.
Right,
It's such a privilege. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.